Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday, and I have a special guest in the house today. I'm calling her internet famous. Dorothy Dalton is here, all the way from Brussels, and Brussels, Belgium. Let's be specific. And we're here today with an awesome topic. But before we get stuck in and start talking about what our topic is, Dorothy, can you please just tell people who you are and what you do, and then we'll get stuck in with our topic today.
Yeah, hi everyone. Gillian, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad that we get the chance to meet finally. So obviously I'm Dorothy Dalton. I'm the founder of a company called 3+ International, and we focus on building gender balanced, diverse and inclusive workplace. And my specific focus is on the talent pipeline and specifically the recruitment process. So I'm also a coach and a trainer. And I spend quite a lot of time on LinkedIn for my sins. And I'm just glad to be able to share my views and whatever I can, my insights to anyone who particularly is in job search or is in career transition.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So our topic today is breaking free from analysis paralysis to advance your career. And we're going to talk from a job seeker perspective today because that is Dorothy's expertise. But I just want to let everybody know this applies to everyone. So many of us, when we're going through transitions, deal with this analysis paralysis. So I just want to kind of set everybody up for that. So Dorothy, what exactly, when we say that phrase, analysis paralysis, what does it mean to you?
Well, it is typically associated with people shutting down, is that they're so overwhelmed with information and detail and activity that they actually cease to function and they're overwhelmed. But my observation is that there is another element, and that is that they fail to analyze. So their analysis is paralyzed and they just go about willy-nilly doing whatever they want, doing what we call spray and pray. So they are sending out, 500 job applications. They're going to networking with people they don't know, that they're making big bloopers in terms of contact with outreach contact. They're doing a lot of things wrong. So I think that when people are looking for a job, it usually comes from three means. Two. One is voluntary, where people look for a job and then they get stuck because it's much harder than they anticipate. The next one is where it's involuntary, and this is super stressful. They're laid off. They might be mergers, downsizes, redundancies. There might be elements of financial risk. Sometimes people just don't know how to pay their bills, when the next job is going to come along. And both, even if you are voluntarily looking for a job, there can still be an element of stress. And the third element is when you're doing it strategically. And truthfully, when people are doing it strategically, they tend not to be impacted by the analysis paralysis spectrum.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And it sounds like, for the most part, one of the first steps or, of kind of overcoming this is truly just having a plan, right? Like starting with a plan and being strategic. And, we talked before we started the show today, and I talked about, this is December. This is probably the time of year where job seekers really hit that rock bottom. So what would you say to somebody going, okay, it's Christmas, it's almost Christmas, shouldn't even bother?
Okay, can I dial back and address the first point first? So one of the most important things that you have to do is when you find yourself that you're stuck, and there will be lots of messages to you that you're stuck. It means that you're getting rejections, you're not getting responses, that you're not getting feedback, all of these no messages. But there is a message in no. It is a message to you that you need to do something differently. So it's not even starting to set up a plan, because that comes next. What you have to do is what I call anchoring work. So you have to sit down, you basically have to breathe, and you have to take time out, you have to breathe. And there is a technique that I use called the 3 R's, which is you do it with kids. Well, a teacher, a friend of mine taught me this about raising kids. It's the ritual, routine, and repetition. So the first thing you have to do is you have to get yourself into a calm space, and you have to start small and take baby steps, step back, analyze, look where you're going wrong, and start valuing yourself and appreciating yourself. So whether or not you start your day by having a nice cup of coffee or going for a walk or hanging out with your kids or your spouse, it doesn't matter. You have to do something that makes you feel good. And you have to integrate these little routines or little rituals into your daily routine. Then you get to a plan. And then you look at your goals, your values, and vision. So what are my goals? And there's a great line, actually, that it was Mark Twain. If you don't know what direction you're going, every road will get you there. So basically, this is where the spray and pray comes. So you've got to step back and say, okay, is this where I want to go? Is it aligned with my goals, my values, and vision? And then you make a plan.
I love that. I love that. So it's almost like stop and do that work first before you move forward. So is that, and I will get back to the December thing in a second, but this made me think of something else. So I'm going to look up how to say the word because it's a hard word for me. Ikigai. You're an Ikigai coach.
Yeah.
Is that sort of what you should do before you do anything? Is that why you do that kind of coaching with people?
Well, becoming an Ikigai coach was my COVID project. And it started before COVID because I noticed that people wanted purpose. And there's a lot of misconceptions around Ikigai. And I'm going to do a plug for my Ikigai coach, who is Nick Kemp, and you can find him on LinkedIn. And it's not about the Venn diagram with doing something you love that makes you money. It's about starting off small, appreciating the small things, valuing yourself, letting things go that hold you back. And this is really important, particularly for the people who are stuck in the analysis paralysis. Is what I call, well, I didn't call it brain laundry. Someone called it brain laundry and I adopted it. It's about the brain laundry process of sorting your whites from your colors. So, letting your dark thoughts go, putting them in a different wash and focusing on the things that are going to add value to what you want to do. And if you do that, you develop a strategy. It's much easier to have a clear line of where you want to go.
I love that. I love that. And I know that even just on a personal level, sometimes I've hit, we've all hit those dark patches in our lives. And I remember once I started a gratitude journal just by finding all the good stuff in my life that helped me sort that brain laundry, so to speak, of even little teeny things, the little wins of like, okay, today I was able to, I got my website done, or, I answered those 3 emails that I didn't want to answer. I made that phone call that I was dreading making. All those little teeny things can add up and give us those, that feeling of self-worth, which is so important.
And I think that's important. I think that's important, Gillian, because particularly on LinkedIn, we see all these people, do these things and you make like $1 million and 5-figure, 6-figure salaries. And that can be really overwhelming. And I think you've just got to shut that out and just focus on the things that work for you. You don't have to get up at 5 o'clock. If your body rhythm is not someone that wakes up early, that's not my body rhythm. If you need to work a weekend or you prefer to weekend, don't listen to the people that say, take the weekends off. It might not work for you. So the most important is understanding what works for you and where you get results. And that's the best message.
I love that. So really, you be you. You be you.
You do you, block out the white noise, and focus on the things that you find make you feel good. And particularly in this process, one of the things that happens with job seekers and all of us when we're in a crisis, and we all handle crisis differently, is we tend to ignore or not pay attention to the things that are important. It might be our relationships, it might be our health and keeping fit or eating healthily, all of these things. Really important to fit that into the ritual piece of your job search. And then if you start your rituals, you make it your routine and you repeat, then you're going to start to develop a structure that will make you feel better. And I think obviously if you get really, really stuck and it happens and you're verging into a depression, then that's the time then you seek professional help for sure.
Definitely, definitely. And I can see that throughout this whole thing, when we're going through transition, sometimes we can't go it alone. A lot of times you want a community. So that's why it's good. If you can have a community of support, you might need a career coach, you might need real professional help. So it's good to recognize we can't do it all. We can't do it all.
Surround yourself with people that support you. And I call this an accountability partner. So if you have certain goals, for example, that you want to attend so many networking events, but if your accountability partner is someone who wants to sit on the sofa and watch Netflix, then that's probably not going to work for you. So find someone that is in line with your own goals, who shares your vision.
I love that. I love that. That's a great thing. Okay, so can we now circle back to the whole December dilemma and what can job seekers do during this time to kind of overcome that analysis paralysis?
Carry on. I mean, there are a lot of myths around job search. And as you know, that I've worked in executive search for many years. And first of all, not everybody celebrates Christmas. It's not year end for everybody. Sometimes people have budgets to spend, right? Some organizations run skeleton staffs over the holidays, and there are lots of networking events to go to. So what you can do is you can use it to your advantage. And the other benefit, of course, is that if a lot of people buy into the myth, nothing happens at Christmas, then obviously the competition is going to be slightly less for you. So I would say to job seekers, just carry on. I mean, you might notice a little bit of slower response if people take, in the States, for example, your Christmas is quite narrow. In Europe, it's longer. Different parts take holidays at different times. So just carry on and do it. But make sure that you take time for yourself. Use the holidays to network strategically. So that goes back to your plan. You just make sure that you're connecting with people who can be the right people to support your job search.
I love that. That's great. That's great. So when you work with people that I know this is part of your of your coaching and what you do with people, what do you find are sort of the biggest things you have to work with people? Like, what's the number one thing that seems to be holding people back?
The anchoring work. I mean, most people don't go through the basic steps, or they think they have and they haven't. And it's just so critical to everything you do. And if you get the basics right, it sets you up for your a strong LinkedIn profile. It sets you up for a good CV. It gives you a networking strategy. You're identifying organizations, you're connecting with the right people. And if you don't have a strategy and a plan, what do? You hit easy apply, you set up your LinkedIn profile for job search on keywords, and you're all over the place. So that way, nothing happens because your methodology is diluted and loses impact. Or the other thing is that happens is you get all these rejections and you just shut down. So if I was said one top thing to do, just take time, step back, go for a walk, I don't know, sit in a park, or I'd have a coffee somewhere and just really reflect on what you want to do. And it doesn't have to be complicated. There's a golfer, and I should know his name, and I forget anyway, he's Scottish or Irish. And he writes every year his goals on a beer mat on an Emirates flight to do Abu Dhabi, because he goes to play golf in some golf tournament every year in the Middle East. And that's what he does. So you don't need a complex spreadsheet or anything fancy, a vision board. Just do it on something that works for you.
I love that. That's great advice and so true. It's like go inside first and figure it all out. And I know I myself, I like to get out in nature. I always find that if I can get away from the computer, pad of paper, pen, and just get outside somewhere, it's like, and be quiet. Just, stop with the noise. Just let those ideas, and they float in. They float in for sure. I love that. I love that. So let's go and check out our comments today. And so we have Jeff Young in the front row, and he says, Gillian and Dorothy, this topic will help folks get off the dime, which is always worth more than just 10 cents. He's kind of cute. He's kind of cute.
That's an expression I never heard before, but
I
very
never
wise.
heard it either. Yeah, it's very wise, very wise. So John Experience says, good to see Dorothy in action with you. Lots of LinkedIn talent in Brussels. That is so true. That is so true. So I love that. And I love too that you travel too, Dorothy, because we were talking before we went live today, and you go off to, all of a sudden I have lost the Dubai. You go to Dubai as well, which is awesome.
So I've got family in the UK. I've got family in Dubai. I spend a lot of time in Spain. I work internationally. So, and I'm finding post-COVID now that it's starting up the travel, that people are feeling much more comfortable with in-person events and trainings. And so, yeah, I'm very privileged, very blessed.
That's great. That's great. And we have Jeff again. Ikigai. Am I saying it right? Ikigai. Okay. Relates to another Mark Twain quote: 2 important days in your life, the day you were born and the day you figure out why. And I love that, because that's so true. And as a matter of fact, let me backtrack, Dorothy. And can I get your story of how did you get involved in what you're doing? What sort of was your career journey?
Well, my background is in HR, and in my early career, I was, so you can imagine, middle-class student just going into an entry-level job. I went into the steel industry, where I was one of 3 women graduate trainees out of 150, and the rest were men. And one of my first jobs was to work with other people on the closure of a big steel plant. So not only was I the only woman in the room, I was very often the only woman on the plant. And one of the benefits of that was that I was trained to be, I don't even think they called it a coach then. I think they called it a counselor or something. It wasn't a counselor, but anyway, whatever it was. And that's how I got into coaching. That they put me through this training program, and I trained with the late Sir John Whitmore, who was a cognitive behavior coach. And even though I didn't always work in it until probably the 2000s, it was always something that was, techniques that I employed when I was running a team of people. I ran a sales team and marketing team.
Awesome. Awesome. And then can I talk about, when we're talking about the analysis paralysis, I hate to ask this, but is there any difference between men and women? Because I know that DEI is something that you are very passionate about. So are there differences between men and women when it comes to this?
Yeah. I mean, there are some major differences, and it's quite interesting because at 3Plus we did research in 2014 and 2020 about who has a career strategy. And in 2014, only 5% of women had a career strategy. 2020, it had gone up to 50%. We're now running more research to get a result for 2023, compared to men who were both times consistently at 85%. So men tend to stay in touch with the market much more strategically than women. Women tend to move for different reasons to men. And they quite often only reach out when they have a problem. Whereas I quite often coach a lot of men who I coach them because they want to make a move next year. Whereas I might coach women because my contract is running out next month and I'm stuck. So I think there is a difference. Part of it, I think, is the gender pay gap. Because men tend to earn more money than women. But I think that generally research shows that women prefer to advance within their own companies, so that they only tend to move when there is a problem. So either there's a problem within the company or there is a problem within their relationship to the company.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. And do you think that also having kids changes things? Because I know that even with myself, I was in the workplace, I had a career, and then I had kids, and then it was like I didn't want to go back to work. I didn't want to leave my children, and so I had to make a shift, and that's when I became an entrepreneur. So I'm wondering if this affects other women too.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, definitely, there's a definite connection between kids, not just kids, but the number of kids that you have. And I think particularly what we're seeing, you're seeing it in the States, we're seeing it in Europe, is the rising cost of childcare. So I think that is making a huge impact on women, and they're having to make decisions. As you might imagine, I wish that parents would they would view it as a parenting issue, because I'm rapidly coming to the conclusion that to get more women in the workplace, we need more men at home. So we need to have gender balance at home, not just in the workplace. But I think that does happen to women. They definitely assume the greater responsibility for childcare, and that's why the decisions they make quite often are around, daycare and the commute. I mean, there is a gender commuting gap, for example. So all of these things play a role.
I can see that for sure. I can see that for sure. So one of the things, like, when if I step back and I think outside of a career space, for the solopreneur, maybe this is the same thing. I know a lot of times people say they're working really hard on their business, working really hard on getting a job, and they go onto a platform like LinkedIn, and they feel that being on the platform is working the platform. And sometimes it's endless scrolling. And do you have any tips of like how to, it's almost addictive, to be honest with you. It's like, and we can go, well, I've been on LinkedIn for an hour. I really worked hard today, but it's like you didn't. And a lot of times you leave the platform with comparing yourself to everybody else. And so do you have any tips on how to break out of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of social media can be just a black hole and a time suck. So I think it is going back to the 3 R's. It's about your own rituals. It's about being very pragmatic, about the vision you have for your business, about setting yourself goals. If you have a financial advisor, or you just have a business plan. And I mean, obviously, if being on LinkedIn is part of your marketing and business development strategy, well, it should be that, and you should be connecting with people that can support your business. Not some kind of, I don't know, some influencer that has nothing to do with, what you're doing, because we all get caught up in that. So it's about setting priorities, I think. Your goals, your value, your vision, your business plan, setting priorities, managing your time, and being very disciplined.
I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome. So can you share just your strategies for using LinkedIn? Sort of like if you could just kind of walk us through your typical day on LinkedIn. What do you do?
Well, I'm an early morning person. No, I'll rephrase that. I'm not an early morning person, but it's not early at all. It's probably late. It's like 8 o'clock. What I tend to do is I check my feed, and I won't say I have a posting schedule, but I know what I'm going to post. I post 2 or 3 times a week. I try and now LinkedIn has introduced all of these limitations and the algorithm and all this sort of stuff. I hate all of that. But I'm very specific about who I connect with. I'm very brutal about my feed. That if I see people like spamming and putting clickbait stuff, they're gone. I just don't have any time for that. And I try and network and connect with people who add value, and in terms of content. And for me, that seems to be sort of basic. And then obviously for me, I use LinkedIn as an authority stamp. I don't do cold outreach or anything like that on LinkedIn. But people tend to come to me because they've heard of me from LinkedIn. So it is a marketing tool, an affiliate marketing tool.
I love that. And it's true. It's kind of builds that brand awareness. People get to know you, get to like you, get to trust you, and all that sort of thing. So that's great. So can I also ask, when you work with clients, who are you working with, and how do you work with your clients?
Well, I'm very lucky. I work with a range of clients. I've got corporate clients, and I do corporate coaching programs. I've just completed 2 days training a global talent acquisition team for a major industrial company based in Belgium. So training all their talent acquisition people in terms of bias in the hiring process. And then I also coach individual clients who either come to me directly from the website, my 3+ website, or they might reach out to me through LinkedIn, or I get them from corporate clients. So I'm really lucky that I've got a range of clients, and I've got that mix because I thrive on just the diversity of meeting different people.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then I noted that you do a lot of speaking worldwide. You're doing a lot of speaking. What topics are you speaking about? What's your specialties?
It usually is something related to, I do quite a lot on networking, and particularly I do quite a lot of speaking around the gender elements around certain elements, like, women and networking. There are gender differences. I do a lot of speaking on recruitment, coaching. What else did I do? The last one I did was something on parenting and HR. So parenting being the next HR crisis. So just a broad range of topics that's loosely related to gender balance, diversity and inclusion, and HR talent pipeline.
I love that. I love that. And sort of, do you have any sort of predictions for, like, as we're kind of moving, we're at the end of 2023. We really feel at this point that maybe COVID's totally behind us now, and we're on to a new world. So kind of moving forward, what are sort of your predictions for going into 2024 that maybe could help in the HR industry? What are your sort of predictions as we're moving forward?
Honestly, I'm the worst person to ask for predictions. I thought COVID would be over in a month. I'm absolutely the worst. But I think from what I'm hearing from my HR contacts, it's all about AI. And I mean, one of the things that I would be interested to see how that develops is that they're now launching software. I think it's called Lazy Apply, where an online platform where you post your CV, your resume, and the AI apply across all media, across all platforms. So I think that's going to make a massive difference. I think we're going to get very involved in the bias in AI. And I think that's about as far as I'm prepared to go, because I don't think anybody knows really in the way that, we didn't know that COVID was coming. And so that's what I'll just say, AI and bias in AI. And the volume of applications, I think, that recruiters are going to be hit with as processes become automated.
Yes. And I can see that, well, AI is just becoming so much a part of everything. But I think one of the few things that I'm not a huge AI fan, but one of the few things I do like about AI, kind of getting back to one of your original points, that if you're getting a lot of no's, don't take it personally. Like, look at it as feedback of, like, okay, what do I need to, redo here? And maybe I need to make some adjustments. And one of the good things I think about some of the AI tools is you can get feedback. So I know, like, even from a video perspective, I love the LinkedIn it's like a job search tool, interview prep, where you can do video coaching on LinkedIn, and it's totally free. Anybody can use it, and you can get feedback about how fast you're talking and filler words and that practice. And I think that could be a positive part of AI that could help people. And, I don't know if down the road there's going to be in sort of AI analysis of your resumes and might say, well, you're using a lot of like passive voice or something like that. So I could see how that would help with people.
And I think it's quite fun. I put my LinkedIn profile through Chat GPT and asked them to turn it into a rap song. And it was, honestly, it was really great. I'm almost tempted to replace my content and put a rap song, but it's probably not on brand. So I think there is lots of potential, and I think, like anything with AI, I really like it, but I think you have to use it as a framework. And I think what we're going to see on the recruitment side, the executive search side, is we're going to see a lot of duplicated generic information. And because all of this data is being taken from the public domain and just regurgitated. So I would suggest to anyone, if they use some sort of AI to generate a resume, that they should at least check it so that it's in your voice and tweak it. Because who knows, the next person also might have done it and produced something very similar.
That's brilliant. And you think about it, if you're not doing that kind of checking, you could get tripped up in the interview process by, says here on your resume, you do blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, oh, that's actually not what I did. And you're not able to carry on that conversation. So yes, always do that double check, because AI does its own thing.
And I think it's also about the tone. So it's exactly, if I submitted a resume in rap and I pitched up as a lady of a certain age, and it's clearly not my voice and not authentic. So I think that you've got to check it carefully. You've got to check it for fact, and you've got to just check the tone is in line with the way you're going to present yourself when you finally turn up for an interview.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. And we have another comment from Jeff. Very interesting discussion today, Gillian and Dorothy. Thank you for your insights. So that was a great closing comment.
Very welcome.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So we're at the end of our 30 minutes, Dorothy. Thank you so, I know it just goes so fast. It goes so fast. Thank you so much for being here today. Is there any final words of wisdom you want to leave everybody with today?
I would say particularly for those that celebrate Christmas coming into the holiday, just take care of yourself, take care of the things that are most important, whether it's your relationships, your family, yourself, and just make time to stick to your career and job search plan, but do it calmly and gently.
Wonderful advice. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for being here today, Dorothy. Thank you for everybody who is watching us live, who's joining the replay, and who comes and listens on the podcast as well. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you back next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye.
Bye.